going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets, powered by FTN. I'm your host, Chris Meaney. Thanks, as always, for taking the time out of your day to hang out with me. Episode 6 of Mean Streets. So we dedicate this episode to the GOAT. I'm Mr. LeBron James. No regard for human life. Nah, he traded in his 6 for 23. Can't do that. I'm Team LeBron, though. I am Team LeBron, like a lot of what he does on and off the court. I don't know how you can hate. I know he's a little cocky, bit arrogant. Sometimes it seems like he gets all the calls. I don't know. I feel like he should get more calls sometimes. It's probably the decision. I get it. Not 1, not 2, not 3. I was a little cocky. It was nice to see him lose that first one against the Mavs. Even like I'm a Mavs guy for those who know me, but it was still nice to see LeBron lose that one after, just thinking it would be a breeze in Miami. Did get 2 championships there. I'm not a hater. I respect too much of the greatness on the court and what he's able to do. And yeah, not a hater. But this episode will not be dedicated to him. What about a Dr. J? Mr. Julius Irving. Got the bobblehead above me. Met Dr. J. Nice guy. Did a couple interviews with him at a former company. My picture taken with his statue outside Wells Fargo. That was a pretty cool moment for me. I never got to see Dr. J in his prime, but, he wore a 6. He was a pretty good basketball player. That I know. He could dunk. What about Kristaps Porzingis? Nah, I can't be that much of a homer, but I love the unicorn. Kristaps. The Mavs just stole him away from the Knicks. What about Ryan Howard? Kind of came out of nowhere, was tearing the cover off the baseball, was on the cover of MLB The Show. Remember that? Just kind of fell off. Had a few good years on an Entourage episode. Love that show. What about Phil Housley for my hockey fans out there? Not bad. Not bad. Not a great coach, though. Not a great coach. What about my guy, Baker Mayfield, right? I'm rocking the shirt. I don't know if you can see it. It's got Cleveland up top. I got the 6 here for Baker. He took a lot of heat yesterday early. I was getting all these notifications. Baker sucks. 0 for 5, 1 pick in the first quarter. OBJ goes down. Boom. 22 for 23. 297 yards. 5 TDs. The touchdown at the very end. Beautiful throw. Got it done. I don't care that it was against the Bengals. Yeah, he should win those games. He did win those games. He did win that game. Who cares? He got it done. If he lost and he got outdueled by Joe Burrow, who looked great in that game, then maybe it's a bit of a different tune here. We're questioning Baker again. 21 consecutive passes. It's a new Browns record. The incompletion was a spike. Right? Second highest graded quarterback of the week, according to Pro Football Focus, 91.2 behind Drew Brees. I think I took a shot at him maybe in episode 2 or 3, just from his quote about Mama didn't raise no puss. Like sometimes he talks a little bit too much. LeBron does that too, but he backs it up, right? Carlos Correa backed it up in the postseason. I like that. I like when an athlete can back up his trash talk. I don't mind a little trash talk. I loved his quote after the game. I loved his little touchdown dance. It's just a necessary mindset. Having to watch that first quarter, stop, drop, shut him down, open up, shot. Oh, no. You know the rest. That's how the Rough Riders roll. Oh, DMX. I like that tune. I like Baker Mayfield. I find myself rooting for him. I love Cleveland. I love the land. I love Meaney Lot. First Energy Stadium. Bumping is great. I've had a few Cleveland experiences. I've been to a couple games. I tend to root for the Browns. Like, they're not my squad, but I don't mind them winning. It's been so long with them losing. One of my takeaways from the Meaney Lot, by the way, bumping, good time, great tailgate. One of my takeaways, though, like, you will see a dozen Cleveland Brown quarterback t-shirts. Like, they have just been through so many quarterbacks over the years. So I'd like to see Baker succeed. This is a 5-2 Browns team, an extra team making the playoffs. It looks like right now they're in. We'll see what happens for the remainder of the schedule. They're definitely not the second best team inside the division. The Steelers won again. Unbelievable. The Ravens are ahead of them. But it's still possible that they could make the playoffs, get to 10 wins. Might take 11, but I think 10 will do it. I like them. I find myself rooting for them. And I didn't wake up here dangerous today. You know, feeling blessed, really, just to be part of this FTN squad. It was a great weekend for everybody over at FTN, FTNBets.com, FTNDaily.com, FTNFantasy.com. It was a great weekend. You know, roll through some of the bets here. Javi Prezzello, what a guy. 14.38 units won. He always calls, I feel like he always calls first touchdown every week. And he doesn't come in here with like 14, 15 calls. He picks 2 or 3. He got 2 of them. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, first time touchdown. That was, I think, 8-1. Devontae Adams, what a game he had, called that. He does it with all the sports, too. Obviously, he's across the board. He knows, I think, every sport in and out, including esports. Does it in hockey, calls the first goals all the time. He is crushing. We have a new leaderboard looking over at 49 units won. Just a cool little feature that we have at FTNBets.com. And Elliot Chris, 13.92 units won. Myself, 12.96 units won. Kevin Adams, 11.2. Ryan Noonan, 12.3. I mentioned the show To the Window. Noonan, Rudell, Chris. It's a must-watch show. I mean, even if you're not a bettor, just you want to see 3 intelligent guys break down every single game. They do it. Tell you which props they like, games they like. You know, some they're fading. It's a phenomenal show. Give them all a follow on Twitter, and you know, follow FTN Alerts. That's where you'll see the bets off the hop. And all 3 of those guys are great at just finding value right away. I think I mentioned this in episode 5. Myself and Noonan were on the Bucks 2.5. It went to 4 by kickoff. Luckily, we still got that, but you know, pretty good showing from a lot of people over at FTNBets.com. Looking for a subscription, promo code Meaney. We'll get you that discount. How about this? Fantasy Guru Drew, the Twitter handle. My guy Drew, second place in the Wildcat, 150K. Bad beat, too. We're rolling out a promo code inspired by his performance on the weekend. 150 Drew will get you 20% off. He joins the chat on Saturday. He has his own session Saturday at midnight, a coaching chat. And listen, this guy's not won 1, not 2. He's won 3. Oh, my grammar is brutal. He's won 3 millionaire makers. 3. Sometimes I just say things and they're not even correct words. You probably already noticed, and I'm sure I'll say it a couple more times in this show, but I get excited, okay? I can't help it. My guy, Drew, give him a follow, Fantasy Guru Drew. You will take so much away from that hour chat. It's a great time. I mean, he thinks outside the box. His article is phenomenal. He talks about the chalk, whether he's, you know, going to be overweight, underweight on certain players. And, you know, he just really goes outside the box with, you know, a lot of his plays. And I mean, he's one of the best to ever do it. To win 3 millionaire makers is phenomenal. So congratulations on the 150. I know it was a bad beat. He really should have had first, but you know, he gave his lineup. We tweeted it out here. As you'll see there in the graphic. Burrow, Connor, Gio, Adams, McLaurin, Boyd, Bryant, Harrison Bryant, good job. Tyler Lockett in the flex, Bills. And he tweeted out earlier too, just the importance, just the little things. And for those who are just new to DFS, and usually the Sunday night game is not included in a lot of the main slates. And you know, good thing it was a high scoring game. It cruised past 60 like most thought. It was a phenomenal football game between the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. Overtime thriller. But he was just talking and he said, look, he's going up against a guy that, you know, he assumed had Carson. He did the math, Carson in the RB slot, and he had Carson in his flex, and he was able to just get off Carson and go to Tyler Lockett. You know, he wasn't going to gain any ground, both having Carson, and that's just a little thing where, you know, if you're putting together a lineup, you want to have that flex spot open, right? In case you want to just maximize your full potential. And he did it with ease. So it's a great move, and it's he's a savvy DFS player. He knows what he's talking about. So again, one more time, 150 Drew will get you 20% off FTN Daily. It is completely worth it. And on top of everything that I just mentioned with him, you get to see his exposures, who he is really going all in on. Does he, have Lockett 80% of his lineups? Does he have Devontae Adams 100% of his lineups? Terry McLaurin just 10%? Like, how is he going about his lineups and how he's going to construct his lineups for Sunday football? I'm telling you, you'll learn a thing or two. Let's move over to, just quickly, not going to spend too much time. This is not going to be, look at me, pat myself on the back. I said before that I am here to help you guys potentially, as a distraction, or maybe, pay the bills, help pay the bills. I saw a couple screenshots of some successful bets, and that's what I love to see. I love it. So here it is from episode 5 on the weekend. 5-1 with my props, 2-1 against the spread, 3-0 money line, 2-1 with my totals. I got that Rams and Bills game under last night. The parlay 1-0. So that brings the record to 13-3. Myself overall at FTNBets.com, 18-7. Just over 13 units won. And overall record on this show, 22-7, 18.1 units won. So just quickly go over some of the props and some of the picks. We had the Bucks -4. We also had them on the money line. The Packers -3.5, also on the money line. The Bills 11.5. Every time I was looking at that Bills game, it felt like they were in the red zone. I mean, they didn't punt once and they didn't score a touchdown. It's just hard to do. But I felt like that was a bad beat. Take the split because you got the under. I thought the Jets wouldn't do enough to do their part, and no surprise they didn't. If the Bills get in a couple times, we get the 11.5, but we probably don't get the spread. So it is what it is. We'll take the split. Detroit and Atlanta didn't get that over. That just looked awful right from the start. Neither team could really get anything going. Then we saw some points at the very end. Todd Gurley falls into the end zone. Probably wished he didn't, of course. But defense, make a play. The Falcons, my goodness, every single week they top a brutal loss. It's crazy. You're running out of excuses. You can't fire Dan Quinn. He's gone. That was tough to watch. And I know Gurley feels devastated. But make a play, Atlanta. Make a play. It's easy to sit here and trash Gurley for that. Yeah, he should have fell. What was he doing? What was he thinking? But make a play. Stop. There's like a minute left in the game and you couldn't stop Stafford. I don't know. I'm done with that. Pittsburgh +100. The Steelers, they put on a clinic in the first half. It was looking like it was going to be a breeze. Give the Titans a lot of credit. They came back in that game, and I sweated that one out. They had a chance to win the game at the very end, but the Steelers pulled through. They're undefeated. I would put some money on them as a Super Bowl prop future. I really like the Steelers squad, as I said when I was giving this pick. They're just an unbelievable team on both sides. Defense is great. Rush defense is phenomenal. They got players in the secondary who can make plays. Big Ben had a couple turnovers, but he did enough there to get the job done. And, the Rams, as I mentioned, got that under there. The parlay was Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and the Chargers +214. Yeah, I was really in on Green Bay and Tampa. I had them, on money line against the spread in the parlay. So kind of all my eggs there in the basket with those two teams. But it worked out. And then the props, and this is why you follow FTN Alerts with Jamal Williams, 24.5. I mentioned that on Friday, even before Aaron Jones was ruled out. We didn't know about Jones, but I had said terrific matchup against the worst rush defense in Houston in the league. Even if Jones did play, I expected Jamal to get a little bit of play. We'll talk about Jamal in just a little bit. Fuller under. Jair Alexander. We talked about him on episode 5. You just need to keep in mind when you have a wide receiver and a top dog going up against him, it's bad news. Calvin Ridley had the 0. Mike Evans, I think 2 weeks ago, 1 catch, 10 yards. I know Evans has been quiet, but he shut him down, and he shut down Fuller. 1 target, 0 catches, 0 yards when he was on him. PFF had him graded as the number 1 corner through 6 weeks, and you can bet he's the number 1 corner through 7 weeks. So he is just a beast. Had the under there on the yards. He got the touchdown late. Alexander wasn't on him. David Johnson, we got the over receiving yards for DJ. Keenan Allen, again, 5.5 catches, just continues to get peppered by Justin Herbert. That one was one we got pretty early. Terry McLaurin, over 78.5 receiving yards. Kind of sweat that out a bit. It was, we got it halfway through the game, but even still, it was just, that game was out of hand, and I just thought Washington was going to run, and I was a little nervous at first, but we got that one, and the only one we didn't get was DK Metcalf, but can we be mad at Metcalf? Oh my goodness. What a play by DK Metcalf on that pick to catch Budda Baker, and for Baker to wave at him? What are you doing? And then we gave him some props on social media after. DK Metcalf reached 22 miles per hour, or for you Canadians out there, 36 kilometers per hour. My goodness, what a freak DK Metcalf is. So can't be mad at the dud game. It was all Tyler Lockett. Patrick Peterson was all over DK Metcalf, and Russell Wilson just kept feeding Tyler Lockett. So not a bad showing with the props. As I said, 13-3 overall on this show, including just, weekend picks. 22-7. It may be beginner's luck. I said this before. I'm not going to come in here every single week and have that kind of showing, but just try to keep pace with all the brilliant minds over at FTN. So with that out of the way, let's talk some news and notes and get you set for week 8, the waiver wire. We're going to touch on that. We're going to take a look at some running backs who had the most opportunities and the most targets for the week. And then we'll touch on the waiver wire, some wide receiver and running back rankings, and then we'll get you out of here on your Tuesday. So the big one is Odell Beckham Jr., torn ACL. He's done for the season, unfortunately. You never want to see anybody go down, but a superstar like Beckham, I feel for him, honestly. I know it's been frustrating a couple of years in Cleveland, and I know he's had a couple big-time injuries over the course of his career. So hopefully he returns next season and he's all good. I was trying to flip him in one of my dynasty leagues, and now I probably won't be able to. Just have to stash him on the IR, and it's a topic for another day. But what his future looks like if it is in Cleveland, if it is with a new team, and is he going to be a wide receiver one ever again? I don't know. I don't think Cleveland is the right environment for him. They like to run the football. They use a lot of their tight ends, and they have some other weapons there. So we'll talk about Cleveland and what it means for the Browns moving forward. Deebo Samuel hamstring looks like long term. I don't have anything confirmed with that, but I would say he's very doubtful to play this week. Deontay Johnson left with an ankle injury, but he says he's going to play against Baltimore. What a matchup that's going to be, Ravens and Steelers. That's must-watch TV. But I don't know if I mentioned him, so I can't take any credit. He was in my article, but a lot of people were really on him. I know Elliot Chris and Kyle Murray were on him as just, underpriced guy. And the past couple weeks he had left early with injury, so we really didn't get the true Deontay Johnson volume that we had in week 1 when he had 10 targets, week 2 when he had 13 targets, and then 15 targets on Sunday, 9 catches, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is the number one. It's not Chase Claypool. He is the number one. Claypool had very quiet game. Juju Smith-Schuster bounced back. Tim Patrick, wanted to bring him up, hamstring day to day, just because I've been talking about him a lot. Maybe we'll get some news on Tuesday, whether it's going to be a long-term thing, but you can probably move on from him. I will personally stash him and keep him in a couple of my leagues. I'm fortunate enough to just have some wide receiver depth that I don't mind waiting out, but if he was somebody that you were starting, you need to move on. I'll have some other options for you. Rashard Perriman, concussion. Marquez Callaway came out of nowhere. He left with an ankle injury. Haven't heard too much about that, so it couldn't be that serious, I don't think. 10 targets, 8 grabs, 75 yards. Last 2 games for him, 16 targets, 12 grabs, 109 yards. This week against Chicago, I don't love it. It's a tough matchup. Bears can't really do much on offense, but I respect their defense, and it looks like Michael Thomas, I don't know if he's going to be able to return with that hamstring injury. So I kind of like Tre'Quan Smith a little bit more. I think there's more upside in a full point PPR. I may go with Callaway. I mentioned on episode 5 that Tre'Quan was just kind of ranked as wide receiver, I think 34, 36, just because there was really not a lot of other bodies there, but it would be a Kamara and Cook show. And, Cook had the touchdown, but it was really Callaway. Tre'Quan Smith didn't do a whole lot. Tre'Quan is just, he's just a guy, if you have to have him just in case Thomas does suffer a setback and, the Saints start to get into some high-paced, high-scoring games, and Tre'Quan can be a wide receiver 3 or a flex for you, but I'm not overly thrilled with his outlook. I don't care too much, really, honestly, about him. Kenyan Drake, ankle injury. That was harsh. I do like Tre'Quan. My bad, Tre'Quan, fan of the show. This is why I was coming at you a little bit later, was I wanted to hear some news with, Kenyan Drake and Chris Carson, and we got some, according to Ian Rappaport, a few weeks for Kenyan Drake due to a slight tear of a ligament in his ankle. Zona's on a bye this week. We talked about Chase Edmonds since August. For me, anybody who's following my work, and week 1, I remember doing the waiver wire show with Pat Mayo and Gary and Thorne, and we just Chase Edmonds is a guy that I thought could potentially steal this job. He has looked better than Drake. He has been better in fantasy than Drake, and you saw it firsthand. Only played 50% of the snaps, and he comes in. He just started to look really good on the ground when Drake really couldn't get anything going. He had the 7 grabs as well, and he's obviously been more involved. If you've been following along and you're a Drake owner, you know this. He's been more involved through the air than Kenyan Drake. You have yourself an RB1 for the next few weeks, and who knows if Drake even gets his job back, because I really do love Chase Edmonds. I just think he's a better back, and we didn't get to see a whole lot from him last year. DJ was hurt. Edmonds had the big game against the Giants, then he got hurt, and then it was the Drake show, but this offense is phenomenal. I would not sell Chase Edmonds. If he is available somehow on your waiver wire, I would spend all of my fab to get him, especially if you needed a running back. I would use the number one waiver wire claim. I would not sell high on Chase Edmonds. I like Arizona's offense a ton, so I'm going to be ranking him as a low-end RB1 for sure the rest of the way, at least while Drake is sidelined. And, I never want to see a guy get hurt. As much as I was such a Chase Edmonds guy and pumping his tires and wanting more Chase Edmonds, I felt for Drake and I feel for Drake. I wish him the best to come back. You see a guy with, tears. Obviously, he's in pain, but, just probably feels like he's letting his team down and going to miss a few weeks. So hopefully a speedy recovery, but hopefully Chase just keeps his job. Chris Carson's foot, mild foot sprain, week to week for Chris Carson. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Philip Lindsay concussion. It has been a whole lot of Melvin Gordon when Philip Lindsay is sidelined. If Lindsay doesn't get back on the field this week, it's just taking a look at some of the touches when Lindsay was out and Gordon had 58 of the 70. Royce Freeman in a deep league potentially. There's still like a scenario where Melvin Gordon gets suspended for 3 games for the DUI charge. And, if Lindsay does miss a couple weeks or misses a week, and then Royce Freeman would be a flex play at least for you. You got a little bit more play when it was just Lindsay as opposed to Lindsay and Gordon. So we saw a couple weeks ago, Lindsay 23 for 101, and he looked good against the Chiefs too, 9 for 79. Gordon had that fumble. I was just like, more Lindsay. We just didn't really get to see that because of the concussion. Jeff Wilson, ankle injury. My goodness, RB1 for the week. We'll get to the Niners backfield in a little bit. High ankle sprain. It will be next man up. He cut into my Jermichael Hasty love, but it looks like Hasty now going to get an opportunity. Devonta Freeman, ankle injury. He just looks toast. Wayne Gallman came in on Thursday Night Football against the Eagles and just looked a lot fresher. So I would be more interested in Wayne Gallman than Freeman, but they both are not great options. Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders, they all missed this past week. I don't know anything yet if they're going to return. I think Mixon may actually miss another week, and Green Bay can afford to keep Jones out, but we'll see what happens there. And Miles Sanders, the same sort of thing. They got Dallas this week. I'm sure if he can play, they're going to he's going to suit up, but they have the bye after that. So, 3 weeks of rest and then maybe return after the bye. Maybe Boston Scott owners will get another, RB2 week out of them. Mark Ingram, haven't heard too much. That may be good news. He left a couple weeks ago with an ankle injury. If he does return, that's just bad news for Dobbins and Edwards. I don't think you want anything to do with any of these running backs if they're all active, especially against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Christian McCaffrey returned to practice. I don't think he's going to play this week, but the fact that he's returned to practice and he's on the field means it's close, it's coming. I'm talking a lot on FTNFantasy.com every Wednesday about selling Mike Davis. Every single week I'm saying you're running out of time. It looks like you really don't have all that much time, and maybe if you haven't been able to sell him now, he's probably just on your roster. There's a chance they can run some 2 RB sets, ease CMC back in, but once he's healthy, he's getting all those snaps. Tevin Coleman, outside chance to play this week. I don't expect him to, but we'll keep an eye on reports. If he does return to practice on Wednesday, that'll be good news. And then Dalvin Cook, haven't heard anything. Alexander Madison is a guy that I view like Chase Edmonds as well. I know he had laid the egg against Atlanta, but if Cook misses a few weeks, and I would view Alexander Madison as a high-end RB2, maybe low-end RB1. I just thought that was a bad game for him, but he's shown before that he can handle a full workload and be a solid running back for you. So don't drop him. If you see him on the waiver wire, pick him up and stash him, especially if you're in a good spot in the standings. You don't need an RB like Carlos Hyde this week. We got running back opportunity leaders. James Robinson up at the top. I was telling people he looked a little slow, a little tired. My bad. He looked great. 22 carries, number 2 for the week. Only Alvin Kamara has more fantasy points than James Robinson this year. Believe that or not. Man, crazy year. 28 opportunities for him. 22 carries, as I mentioned, 119 yards. Caught 4 balls for 18 yards, 2 touchdowns. Got the bye this week. I had only mentioned him as a sell-high candidate if, you had 3 RBs and he was your 4th, right? So Devonta Zigbo came back and he didn't really do a whole lot. He did nothing, actually, and then he popped up with an injury. So this seems like Robinson's backfield, and if you sold him, hopefully you got something that helped your team out and gave you some balance. That was it. You should have been able to get a solid wide receiver for him. But if you sold him for peanuts, my bad. I'll take the loss there, but he looks good. Jamal Williams, 24 opportunities, 19 carries, 77 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 catches on 5 targets for 37 yards. So Minnesota this week. Just got a little bit of a glimpse of what the usage would be like with Jamal Williams there and not Aaron Jones. So that was nice to see if you picked him up. Antonio Gibson, 21 opportunities, 20 carries, 128 yards, and 1 touchdown. Just the 1 target, 0 catches. And, G.D. McKissick is the guy that's on the field when they're down, and they were up in that game. So it's going to be a lot of Antonio Gibson when they are up in games, but how much are they going to be up in games? The schedule looks good. I was on the Fade the Chalk podcast with Adam Pfeiffer, and I mentioned Antonio Gibson as a buy low candidate. I thought you can get him pretty cheap. I don't think you can now. Potentially with Washington on the buy. There may be somebody out there that doesn't believe in Gibson and they're willing to sell now, but look at the schedule. There's some games that they can control. Got the bye this week, as I mentioned, but the Giants, Detroit, Cincinnati, and Dallas again, those are all games that he should be able to get 17 opportunities, maybe catch a couple balls in a high-paced game against maybe the Bengals, maybe the Lions. But it was positive to see that type of usage. Jeff Wilson, as I mentioned, 20 opportunities, RB1, 17 for 112, and had 3 touchdowns. He caught 2 balls for 8 yards. It just doesn't matter who it is. Like, erase the name tag off the back of the jersey, the number. Shanahan just finds a way to make running backs productive in his offense. And Juszczyk is a guy that is a great blocker, and he creates a lot of holes. I believe he had a touchdown. But, Jeff Wilson is going to miss some time, it seems. A high ankle sprain. I don't think he's going to return this week. As I mentioned, Tevin Coleman. So finally, we may be able to see JaMychal Hasty. It's the second straight week he's had to come in and fill in for a 49ers back who left with an injury. And 9 carries, 57 yards, caught a ball for 16. McKinnon, 3 for -1, 0 targets. Shanahan said after the game he was just looking to just ease off McKinnon a little bit. He missed a couple years, so he was really filling in for the first few weeks. And I think Hasty is just a better between the tackles runner. Same thing with Wilson, obviously Mostert as well. And like I said, I don't think Coleman's coming back. So we have some potential shootouts for the Niners over the next couple weeks. So McKinnon could get some play. I wouldn't drop him. You could get behind dropping him, but I just don't like to drop running backs that I feel like could be this good in this offense. We've already seen it. He scored some touchdowns in the first few weeks. If anything happened to Hasty, it'd be next man up for McKinnon. I think he does have a role on this team. But with Tevin Coleman coming back soon, if you needed a running back to start this week, like a Carlos Hyde, then I would make that swap. But Seattle, Green Bay, and the Saints coming up, it could mean a few more catches for McKinnon over these next couple weeks. And Hasty could also do that as well. He caught a few balls in college, and he's got a couple balls over, a limited sample. So we could finally get some JaMychal Hasty. Carlos Hyde is somebody I wanted to bring up. His 19 opportunities, 15 for 68, had a touchdown, 4 targets, 3 grabs, 8 yards. A lot of people don't view him as a pass catcher. He can do it. 59 grabs in San Fran in 2017. But this is his backfield, I believe, for the next couple weeks. DJ Dallas had a couple snaps. He's going to get some play. Rashad Penny is not ready to return yet. Pete Carroll said he doesn't expect him to return this week. He's just a deep stash. So, yeah, Hyde is not anything overwhelming. Like, he's not a RB1, that's for sure. But 1,000 yards last year. I mean, you plug him in for double-digit points, a much better offense than Houston last season. He's going to be the goal line back. So I think I'm going to rank him as a low-end RB2 this week. And, you could do worse than Carlos Hyde. We'll go over to the running back targets. Leonard Fournette up at the top here with 7 targets, 11 carries for 50 yards. He had 6 grabs for 47 yards. Just a pain in the ass for Ronald Jones owners, isn't he? 13 carries for Jones, 34 yards, 1 reception for 2 yards. So he really caught into a lot of what Jones has been doing in the passing game. I know Jones had the rushing touchdown. This is a complete mess. It really is. I don't know how to really view this backfield going forward. They got the Giants, Saints, Carolina, the Rams, and KC. This is a bloody mess. I think I'll rank Jones ahead of Fournette, but they signed Fournette for a reason. They like him. He is a great back in terms of just the short yardage that you need 1 or 2 yards. He's a guy that's going to be able to get you that and pound it in. And, he had a big season last year catching a lot of balls out of the backfield, and, it was on full display against the Raiders. It's a bloody mess. It really is. I got nothing to say but that. I will revisit this later in the week and tell you who I'm feeling more. I think I'm feeling Jones slightly more, but Fournette looked like the better back against Vegas and was the 31st ranked team in rest DVOA defense. It's a mess. I'm telling you right now, it's a mess. Chase Edmonds, I already really talked about him, but 7 targets, 21.5 fantasy points in a full point setting, RB5 for the week, 5 carries for 58 yards. He had the 7 grabs, as I mentioned, for 65 yards. Played, just over 50% of the snaps, and he's been playing behind Kenyan Drake and outproducing him, as I mentioned. So I'm a big Chase supporter. I've already went down that road. 3 double-digit fantasy point games already from him. No back has run more routes in the slot than him. I expect that to continue. Probably less now that he's going to be the guy that gets about 15 carries, 12 to 15 carries a game, but really like Chase Edmonds. Justin Jackson, 6 targets. Joshua Kelly, 5 targets. So Jackson had 5 for 12. Maybe still dealing with the knee injury, but he really saved his day with the 5 grabs on the 6 targets for 43 yards. Played 39% of the snaps. Kelly, 12 for 29. Not efficient at all, but a little bit more than Jackson. He had the 5 targets as well. As I mentioned, 5 grabs, 24 yards, played 46% of the snaps. This is another backfield that's it's just a complete mess, right? They really are going to ride the hot hand there. Denver, Vegas, Miami, Jets, Buffalo coming up. So, wow, there's some really good matchups there. Vegas and Miami and Buffalo are teams that you can really run all over. And then the Jets, they threw the ball a lot more than I expected. They're a team that plays to a slower pace and they run, but they were down at a point in that game. But Justin Herbert, man, he just looked great again. QB1, man, Herbs, he is looking unreal. He really is. I'm excited to see Tua out there because Burrow and Herbert they're playing really good football. So I'm excited to see Tua out there. I don't know both of these guys should be owned. Jackson is owned. Kelly's still hanging around waiver wires. You have to have running back depth. Let's see what Jackson does this week if he can get full practices in. I think I'll still rank him ahead of Joshua Kelly. I think he has slightly more upside. But this is another backfield that's a complete mess. DeAndre Swift, 5 targets, and some reports before the game happened that they were going to open up the offense for him a little bit. 9 for 27, not phenomenal, but he had the red zone target or the red zone rushing attempt that he converted for a touchdown. 4 catches on 5 targets, 21 receiving yards. Adrian Peterson didn't do a whole lot. Had the 1 catch, -1 yard, 11 for 29. So looks like Swift is going to continue to out-touch AP just, slightly, just a little bit. I mean, just looking at the snap counts overall here for the Detroit Lions, and Swift had 44% and Adrian Peterson had 27%. So that's what you want to see. Maybe Matt Patricia's figuring it out. No, carry on. Just give the ball to Swift. He's always going to be a big player in the passing game, so he's going to be a low-end RB2 for sure in a full-point setting. But Matt Patricia, he'll get you every time. Gio, 13 carries, 37 yards, 5 grabs for 59 yards. So not a bad replacement. I thought that he was going to be about 15 touches or so, 18 opportunities. He had the touchdown. Good stuff. Gio, maybe you'll get one more week out of him. We'll just keep an eye on what's going to happen with Joe Mixon. Boston Scott, Wayne Gallman, just want to touch on them as well. I already mentioned Boston Scott's Thursday night game, but it was nice to see 46 yards on the ground, 12 carries, 46 through the air, 5 targets, 3 grabs, had the receiving touchdown at the end. So much like Gio, Boston Scott, these guys are going to be ranked in around the same. Probably Scott maybe ahead of Gio if Miles Sanders doesn't play, especially with Dallas on the docket. But those are both backs that I think they can get about 15 touches. Wayne Gallman, 10 for 34, 1 touchdown, 5 catches for 20 yards, had the 5 targets. So just looked a lot better than Freeman. Freeman had the ankle injury. So if you're really desperate at the running back position, I think you can get by with Gallman. The Chiefs backfield, wanted to touch on this. Clyde Edwards-Helaire played 51% of the snaps, 8 for 46, had 4 targets, 1 catch for 17 yards. Bell had 33% of the snaps, 4 for 39, 0 targets. So just easing Bell into the offense. And listen, I said this before. I think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think this is his backfield, and Bell is just there to touch the ball 5 to 12 times. Sure, there's probably going to be a game where Bell looks really good and he'll get run, but I think for the most part, this is Clyde Edwards-Helaire's backfield. I said I would sell Bell. I still think I would. I definitely think I would, but now just with that game, value, people overreact a little bit. So maybe you wait till one game and you sell them, and then you have the one game and you want to keep them, right? It's what have you done for me lately is always how it works. So let's bring up some running back rankings for the week. And up at the top, I got LaMichael Pirine, JaMychal Hasty, Joshua Kelly, Zach Moss, Tevin Coleman, Damian Harris, Gus Edwards, Cam Akers, who didn't really touch the field at all. I think he had a carry and there was a penalty, and then that was it. My goodness. And then Wayne Gallman. So for LaMichael Pirine up at the top here, 11 carries, 39 yards, had the touchdown, 3 targets, 2 grabs, 16 yards, played 66% of the snaps compared to Gore, who played 31% of the snaps, 11 carries, 60 yards, so more efficient. But I look at the schedule to come. KC, New England have the bye. Chargers, Miami, Vegas, Seattle. I think this is Pirine's backfield now, and it probably will be a little bit split, but when they get into a game like KC this week, and they're playing from behind, Gore's not going to be the guy out there catching balls. It's going to be P. Ryan. So I like P. Ryan moving forward. I think he can be underrated. And I think if you need running back help, then, P. Ryan is a guy that you want to play. But, I view it like this. If you need somebody to start this week, Carlos Hyde is obviously up the rankings a little bit more. You're in a pinch. You need to start this week. You're going to get a couple plays out of Carlos Hyde. If you're up at the top of your fantasy football standings and you're just looking for maybe a home run play, a running back, that you're looking for some depth, you don't really need to start this week, P. Ryan. I think Hasty is in a situation where you need to start this week. Hasty. You're looking for a depth piece. Again, Kelly, Moss, Harris, Edwards, Cam Akers. The only way I would pick up Cam Akers is if you were first or second in your league. If you need players now, you can't mess around with Cam Akers. Heck, I may even have to take him off the list. It's Sean McVay's not getting many touches, and I can't sit here and wait for Brown or Henderson to go down. But in leagues that I have Akers, I'm in a decent spot. I'm willing to just wait it out. But like I said, you need somebody. It's Hyde. It's Hasty. P. Ryan is a sneaky player this week, but it is the Jets after all. How many points are they going to score against KC? But he could catch 5 or 6 balls, and I think that's valuable. The Kelly Jackson thing, I already went over, but I just feel like Kelly should be owned. For Zach Moss, 7 for 47, 3 grabs for 25 yards. He got a lot of run in the second half, ended up playing 45% of the snaps. Singletary, 8 for 29, 2 catches for 18 yards, played 55% of the snaps. Early on in that game, it was looking like it was just going to be a whole lot of Singletary. Like I said, Moss got some play in the second half. I think he should be rostered. I already mentioned Hyde. I think this is his backfield. Over to Harris and Burkhead. Harris, 10 for 48, played 42% of the snaps. Burkhead, 4 for 35, caught 4 for 12 yards, played 46% of the snaps. James White, only 1 target. No rushing attempts, 18% of the snaps. They got Buffalo this week, so it could be a Harris week. The Jets would be a Harris week. Baltimore would be a Burkhead week, in my opinion. Houston could be a Harris week. Arizona and the Chargers. So Harris is getting dropped. I noticed a 14% drop in Yahoo leagues. It's going to be game script dependent. I know they have a lot of running backs there, and I know the offense doesn't look good. But against Buffalo, maybe they'll try to establish the run. Certainly against the Jets, they're going to be able to run, and Houston as well. It's when they're down in games, it's going to be Burkhead and White and not Harris catching balls. But when they're up, it's going to be a little bit of Harris. But when are they going to be up? Cam Newton doesn't look good. This offense does not look good. So that's how I go about that. I believe Harris will be the guy that gets about at least 10 to 12 carries. I wouldn't drop him. I have a hard time dropping running backs. Maybe you're in an 8-team or a 10-team league. Yeah, I would drop him for Chase Edmonds. Sure. Maybe I would drop him for Carlos Hyde, but it could just be a couple weeks for Carlos Hyde. I think Carlos Hyde will be a better play this week, but you got to look at the long term. It's all about context and what you need right now. So that's kind of how I got those guys ranked. Any questions, you can always hit me up at Chris Meaney. And feel free to leave a comment in the YouTube section of a guy maybe that you're after on the waiver wire, somebody that you like a little bit more maybe than I like, or somebody who you're thinking about dropping. Because it's all about, sure, you can pick somebody up, but who are you dropping? So leave a comment there, and I'll certainly get to them in the next show. Stashes for me, Tevin Coleman, mentioned Akers, Royce Freeman, Ozigbo. Those are just some deep stashes. Gallman at the bottom there, Tampa this week, not ideal. I don't know if I would start him. You have to be in a really tough spot to start Gallman. Over at wide receiver, another giant up at the top. Sterling Shepard, Brendan Aiyuk, Denzel Mims, Jalen Reagor, Rashard Higgins, Cole Beasley, Corey Davis, Preston Williams, Tre'Quan Smith, and Nelson Aguilar. Shepard had a nice game in his return. I was surprised to see his ownership so low. He's not available, in a lot of competitive leagues, but it's possible he was dropped. I think last time I saw it was right around 25%. 8 targets, 5 catches, 59 yards. Slayton's the number one guy. He's always going to get the top corner. Tate had a lucky touchdown against the Eagles. I'm not a believer in him. Ingram had the team high 9 targets, 6 for 46. A lot of people complaining about Ingram. I don't know what they expect. 6 for 46, full point setting. That's 10 points out of your tight end, right? He's probably top 5 tight end. If you don't score a touchdown, that's beautiful. If you score a touchdown, you're top 3, top 4 tight end. If you get 10 points, take it, move on. They're trying to get him involved with some rushes and a couple of end arounds I saw. They're trying to get the ball in his hands. Maybe they'll do a better job if they can just establish the run a little bit, but it's going to be tough against Tampa. But for Shepard, he's up at the top here. I'm not honestly a huge Shepard guy. I think he's good. There are a lot of options there for Daniel Jones. I own Shepard in a league, and I'm going to try to sell high on him just because there's just so many options. But I do feel like, Shepard deserves to be atop of this list. I think he has the highest ceiling. Aiyuk is going to get some run here with Debo out for a couple weeks. He had a team high 7 targets, 6 grabs, 115 yards, at least 7 fantasy points in 5 straight. Has a 21 showing performance, 13, 17 in week 7. Got Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans on the schedule. So as I mentioned, some high-paced games. Debo did a lot for the 49ers, so I think Aiyuk is going to be able to step in and be the wide receiver 1 on that team. Targets behind George Kittle. Mentioned George Kittle as an under. I don't come in with too many unders. Wasn't on my board. I had him at FTNBets.com. Bill Belichick. That's what they does. He takes away the opposing team's best player, and they're just so good against tight ends. So I got that under, and looked like I wasn't. I think Kittle had like 40 some odd yards in the first half, but it was a lot of Aiyuk. And I think it'll be a lot of Aiyuk against the games against Seattle, Green Bay, and New Orleans. If you're in a pinch, Kendrick Bourne has shown before he can find the end zone. That's in deep, deep leagues. Mims is a guy I really like, and I had him up at the top for a little bit, and then I was just adjusting. I thought to myself, the Jets, I can't really do this. I am going to be a tad aggressive on Mims on the waiver wire in a spot where I need a wide receiver. He showed up in the second half when Rashad Perriman went down, and obviously Jamison Crowder didn't play. And if Crowder is playing, I expect him to be the number 1. Mims is probably going to face a lot of top corners, and that's tough for a rookie. Tre'Davious White paid attention to him a lot in the second half, and it was a struggle for Mims, but a pretty good day from him. 7 targets, 4 catches, 42 yards in his NFL debut. Got KC this week. They're going to have to throw the football. I don't know. I think he's good, and I'm pretty excited about him. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. There's just not a lot of options there. Jalen Reagor is another guy that I really like. I mentioned him last week just as a stash. Deshaun Jackson is now out basically for the season. Zach Ertz is still sidelined for 4 to 6 weeks. Travis Fulgham is the guy there. Another strong week from him against the Giants. He's the number 1 wide receiver. But I think Reagor is going to... I think he's going to return soon. He was activated on Monday from the IR. He could potentially return this week against Dallas. Got the bye. I like the schedule moving forward. Giants, Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, Arizona, Dallas. It's not like phenomenal passing matchups for Carson Wentz, but I see some potential high-scoring games there, some high-paced games. And Reagor had that big catch in week 1, 55 yards. That was Carson Wentz's longest completed pass in quite some time. So Carson Wentz leads the league in air yards. He's taking shots down the field. Don't give up on Jalen Reagor. I think he could be a wide receiver 3 when he gets going and he's healthy. Rashard Higgins is on this list. Nice little game from him. 6 targets, 6 grabs, 110 yards. Touchdown in week 5 and week 6. And, I think he's an ad, but you just need to temper expectations just slightly, just a little bit, because this is a team that still wants to run the football, and Njoku and Bryant both had touchdowns, 3 combined. They used their tight ends. Landry's now the wide receiver 1 there, but Higgins needs to be picked up and rostered because Landry, he had the hip injury, the rib injury. I think he admitted to a broken rib, so he's clearly not 100%, and he's going to get now a lot of attention in corners. So that could maybe leave some soft coverage for Rashard Higgins. And, Baker looks his way in the red zone quite a bit. I like him more than Donovan Peoples-Jones, who caught that ball at the very end, but I still think that this is a fair ranking for him. 5. I would still rank him 5. If you were super, super desperate, you had claims on Shepard and Aiyuk, I could see maybe Higgins over Mims. But I just got this feeling about Mims. I'd like him. I liked him coming out of college. And the Jets suck. They stink. They're just going to have to throw the football quite a bit to play catch up. Beasley's on this list. Cole Beasley doesn't get the respect. I was actually shocked to see his ownership below 50%. These are all wide receivers, by the way, below 50%. Like Christian Kirk, didn't include him. He should be rostered. He should be owned. Mike Williams, bad week. He should be rostered. He should be owned. So I didn't include anybody under 50% in Yahoo leagues. So that's kind of the site I was going through. If there's somebody that I don't get to, please mention him in the YouTube comment, and I'll comment, and I'll also bring it up on the show and have a bit of a discussion with him. But for Beasley, these are his point totals in a full point PPR: 10, 12, 16, 12, 11, 14, 22. Talk about just consistency. As a guy that you can just plug in a full point setting as a flex guy, and he's just going to get you double-digit points. Yeah, obviously a monster game, so he's going to get some love finally on the waiver wire. 12 targets, 11 grabs, 112 yards. He has 50 yards or a touchdown in every single game this season. 40 yards or a TD in 13 of 16 games last season. Consistency from Cole Beasley. Pick him up. Play him. Rock him. He's currently wide receiver 19 in full point PPR settings. He was wide receiver 23 last season. His ownership in Yahoo, 41, ESPN, 41, NFL.com, 59. Not known in enough leagues. Corey Davis, really like Corey Davis. And he was dropped in a lot of leagues. I had to cut him. He was placed on COVID and on the COVID list, and Titans weren't playing. I just had to move on. I'm going to try to get him again in the league that I dropped him. And a couple I was fortunate enough to be able to stash him. This guy has a ton of skill. We've only just seen parts of it. But 7 for 101, 3 for 46 and a touchdown, 5 for 69, 6 for 35 and a touchdown, 29 targets in 4 games. That's 7 targets per game. Cincy this week, great matchup. Corey Davis, I think, is really just starting to come into his own. And if he does leave somewhere else and go to another team that likes to throw a little bit more, I would buy Corey Davis in Dynasty. I would try to get him. I'm not ready to call his career a bust. I think he's got game, and we're starting to see it. Preston Williams, touchdown in back-to-back games, 3 on the season. Who knows? As I said before, Tua could be his guy. And Devontae Parker, last time I saw, had a groin injury. Keep an eye on him. He may have been dropped with the bye week, coming back this week. Traquan Smith in there, 4 for 54, 4 targets. Callaway, as I mentioned, 8 for 75. Chicago, Tampa Bay, coming up, not great. Schedule opens up a little bit. You got the Falcons in there twice and the Eagles. Nelson Aguilar, number 10 on this list, had to put in a former Eagle. Maybe he just needed to change the scenery, right? He looks good with the Raiders. He's catching touchdowns. He's not dropping any balls. He runs crisp routes. He's very fast. He finds a way to get open. Maybe it is really just a change of scenery, a clean slate for him. He's got touchdowns in 3 straight games. Season high 9 targets, 5 grabs, 107 yards, 111 yards in his 2 games before week 8 or week 7's performance. Cleveland, the Chargers, Broncos, KC, Atlanta, Jets coming up is pretty good schedule. It's not bad. A tough schedule to start for the Raiders. Henry Ruggs seems like a guy who's just going to get 1 to 2 deep targets a game, not a whole lot of work. Darren Waller is the number 1 target, but Aguilar is a deep threat guy, and we've seen it now. It's been on display, and Carr's kind of looking his way. So I think you could pick him up and maybe rock him as a flex guy, or you're in a pinch here. You had Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins. You're not able to get some of these other wide receivers. Aguilar is certainly trending up, and I've taken notice with what Aguilar has done. I know he's taken a lot of heat in Philadelphia, so it's good to see him bounce back and have himself so far a pretty good season with the Raiders. Teams on bye: Washington, Arizona, Jacksonville, Houston. These are players I would cut. OBJ, obviously, JD McKissick, and a full point PPR setting if you're super thin at the running back position. This guy was a flex player for you. Then maybe you can hold on. Same sort of deal with Logan Thomas. I don't like to carry 2 tight ends. Maybe in deep leagues, or if you have to start 2 tight ends, obviously you want to kind of hold 3 of them. 7 catches, 102 yards in his last few games. He's found the end zone in back-to-back games, so it's not a bad option. But I'd probably myself move on for a Trey Burton, just rock Trey Burton for the rest of the year. Richard Rodgers is interesting this week, but Dallas Goedert's going to come back soon. So Rodgers. Maybe you find somebody else to drop and you rock Rodgers, and then you can go back to Logan Thomas if you want. Randall Cobb, I wanted to bring him up. He had a big game, revenge game. Got the over 3.5 catches. It was plus money, by the way. Should have came on the show with that one. But that one is not for everybody. I don't want to come in here with Randall Cobb, saying that he's going to get 4 grabs when 4 grabs would almost be like a season high for him. He's had a couple decent games, but 10 targets, 8 grabs, 95 yards is not something that I expected, but Alexander was on Fuller, so that's why I liked Cobb. I look ahead at the schedule for Houston out of the bye: Jacksonville, Cleveland, the Pats, Detroit, Lions. So when they play Jacksonville and Cleveland, Fuller is going to be in great spots, but when they play New England and, Gilmore is going to be on Fuller, then it may be a Cobb game, but you need a wide receiver this week. I would cut him for any of the wide receivers that I mentioned on the list, but if you're just looking for a deep stash, a potential home run threat, if anything happened to Cooks and Fuller, I think you'd have that with Cobb. That's why I have a lot of shares, and that's why I like him. Fellas can be dropped, put up a 0. Jordan Akins could potentially come back. Guys you hold, obviously the 2 quarterbacks and Kyler Murray, QB1 on the season. Sean Watson you hold. Christian Kirk, got to hold him. Antonio Gibson, hold him. Brendan Cooks, DJ Chark, you hold these guys. Keelan Cole could be dropped. It was a bit of a dud game from him. Huge dud game, actually, 1 for 12. It was his first real dud game. I mean, he's a top 30 wide receiver heading into the week. Houston, Green Bay, Pittsburgh out of the bye. You could cut him for basically anybody else, everyone on that list. I think deeper formats, I would hold him. 14-team leagues, full point settings, I would hold him. And Jacksonville's a team that's just going to be throwing a lot, playing from behind. Tight ends that could potentially be dropped. You could start this week. Mike Gesicki against the Rams. It's possible he was dropped with the bye week and a disappointing game before the bye. And who knows if Tua, like I said with Preston, Gesicki could be his guy. See quarterbacks before, young quarterbacks lean on tight ends. Trey Burton against the Detroit Lions. I like Burton the rest of the way. I love him. Big fan. I would rock him the rest of the year. I view him as a top 14, 15 tight end. Richard Rodgers got the Cowboys this week. Had a great game against the Giants. 8 targets, 6 grabs, 85 yards. It's a short-term play in a pinch. Eric Ebron against Baltimore. Don't love the matchup, but he should actually probably get a lot of play. I would expect him to get a lot of play against Baltimore. And then Harrison Bryant against Vegas, not going to score 2 touchdowns from you, but I noticed he's just, like I said earlier, he's starting to trend up, run more routes. Quarterbacks to stream. I've been holding Teddy Bridgewater as a Kyler owner, waiting for this week against the Falcons. It's Thursday Night Football. Sometimes those games are sloppy, but I would roll him out. Joe Burrow just needs to be rostered at this point, but his ownership is not high enough, so I want to bring him up. Quarterback 12 in the season, got the Titans. Pretty good spot. Carson Wentz, same sort of deal, could be available despite being quarterback 7 on the year. He's the number 1 streaming option, let's be honest, against the Cowboys. And then Derek Carr is a guy that probably is available in single quarterback leagues. Got the Browns this week. I assume everybody owns the Chargers and the Chiefs. Chiefs against the Jets. Chargers against the Broncos. You got the Saints against Nick Foles and the Bears. Foles didn't look good on Monday Night Football. Green Bay against Minnesota. And then digging a little bit deeper here, Tennessee against Cincy, Detroit against Indy. Detroit against Indy with the noodle arm, Phillip Rivers can create a couple turnovers. And I know I just mentioned Joe Burrow, but he's dropping back and throwing a lot. And I want a defense that's going to go up against a quarterback who's going to drop and throw the football a lot, not against a team who's going to slow the pace down and run the ball. Since he's playing at an up-tempo pace, using 3 wide receiver sets, it's looked good over the past couple weeks. Everybody's kind of getting theirs, Higgins, Boyd, and AJ. And Joe Burrow's looked good, as I mentioned. But if you're in a pinch, I think you can start Tennessee. That will do it. Episode 6 in the books. Week 8 around the corner. Anybody I didn't get to, leave a question in the YouTube comment section. I will get to them. I'll comment, and I'll also touch base on them in the next episode. You can also reach out at Chris Meaney. Articles to come from me this week. Stats to know at ftnfantasy.com. Taking a look a little bit more, breaking down more of targets, red zone opportunities, air yards, A-dot, what it all means moving forward as well. I'll have the trade article for you on Wednesday, and then the DFS article for you on Thursday. Any questions, guys, you can always hit me up at Chris Meaney. I appreciate all the support, all the love. You don't know how much it means to me. If you're hanging around this long, then I'm doing a decent job, I guess. But, any feedback, I'd love to hear it. And if you're just new and you stumble along this show, please subscribe, rate, and review. And that'll just go a long way to helping the show out. And if there's a guy we didn't get to, check out FTN Fabcast with myself and Matthew Davis. Will come out a little bit later today on Tuesday afternoon. We dig a whole lot deeper. A lot of the guys that I've talked about will not be rostered. Higgins, or not be available. Like Higgins is a guy that probably is available. But other than that, these guys are mostly owned. So we'll be digging real deep for teams, for people that play in those crazy 14, 16-team leagues. I love those leagues. So we'll be digging deep at the bottom of the barrel. Thanks so much again for taking the time to hang out. Happy Tuesday. Any questions, leave a comment. Player I didn't get to, mention them in the YouTube page, and I'll get to them. Cheers, guys.